Diane, Chica, if you wanted to start us off.
I would love to. Drinho Zo, Shojre Cheyenne Beatty, Eagle Huchin. My name is Cheyenne Beatty, and I'm Hanwichinatha Baskin from Eagle, Alaska, and I am Tronik Huchin from Moosehead, Yukon Territory. I am so grateful for all of you to join us here today. The Alaska Native Heritage Center was very honored to be co-hosting this informational gathering today with the Rasmuson Foundation, who's always one of our great family of supporters and amazing people in our community, as well as our state and nationwide, helping various artists. And the Alaska Native Heritage Center is a place that is a living cultural museum, as most of you know, and our mission is really to preserve and strengthen the traditions, languages, art, and Alaska's Native people through statewide collaboration, celebration, and education. And we're going to do all of those things pretty much today as a co-host with the Rasmuson Foundation. I wanted to start off with introducing Tatiana Ticknor, who is one of our Ungawat program coordinators. She's Tlingit, Dena'ina, and Daguetan Athabaskan, and we really wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the land that the Alaska Native Heritage Center resides on. So we'd like to ask Tatiana to do a land acknowledgement.
Nazandininu, Shishida, Shishi, Tatiana, Ticknor, Shlanchi, Dena'ina, Tlingit, Daguetan, Shlanchita, Dugatni, Shibu, Shapaya, Falanda, Idishunta, Fatan, Katna, Fida. Welcome, my name is Tatiana Ticknor. I'm Dena'ina, Tlingit, and Daguetan Athabaskan. And I was born and raised here in Anchorage, and I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the Naini people's land. On the Alaska Native Heritage Center resides on the people of the Kootenais land, just right up the highway, a couple miles up, just from here. And I'd like to acknowledge that we are on their land and thank them for letting us use their land here today. And when I see Aaron, I'll give him a small gift just to thank him for letting me do land acknowledgements on his land. Chinan Gunini, thank you very much.
Masicho. I also would like to introduce our other co-host for the Alaska Native Heritage Center is Chica Spark. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Waka Koyana Dialogy. Thank you all for coming. My name is Chica Spark. I'm Kasiuna Mute. I'm Chupik Eskimo. From background you see here is my family's village of Chivak, Alaska. And I grew up in the YK. I'm from Bethel originally, but we are so happy to be a part of this, and I'm very happily welcoming all you artists to this informational meeting. And just so you know, my role here at Alaska Native Heritage Center, basically anything arts and outreach, I will be in touch with you, and you should know that you can always get in touch with me as we proceed. I mean, 2020 and COVID has really thrown everything into a loop, but we're finding new ways to proceed, and always look out for outreach from me, and then also know that you can share my name and contact, for yourself or for others. And Koyana again for coming.
Thank you all for being here. Chinan Guninu and Dena'ina, thank you came here. I'd like to introduce our host, really, we're the co-hosts, the Rasmuson Foundation staff, and Zena Rari and Tristan Morgan.
Hi, everyone. My name's Enzina Marari, she, her. I am a multidisciplinary practicing artist and program officer for the Rasmuson Foundation. I echo Cheyenne and Chica's sentiments. We're so happy to be able to be here and share in this space with you all this evening. I I also have the pleasure of introducing my co-host, co-presenter for the evening, Tristan Agnarak-Morgan. Tristan, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I haven't provided an Inipok introduction to our other informational meetings, so I feel it's a special introduction that I can share with you guys. I'm a practicing Inipok artist here on Dena'ina Islena, or Dena'ina Athabascan land here in Anchorage. I've been with the foundation for almost 2 years now, so I'm in a fellowship in conjunction with Philanthropy Northwest. It's based out of Seattle, and this is my second year helping out with IAA, and I'm really excited to be here and be able to share information with you guys and answer questions.
Thank you, Tristan. I also wanted to recognize Zuli Mason. Zuli is a contract program support individual for the Individual Artist Awards, and tonight Zuli is on mute and unmute duty and monitoring the chat box. She'll also, as some of you were logging in, you filled out a poll, and Zuli will share the results of that poll with us as well. Karen Lowell is on the call, and Karen is also providing some program support. Karen is the first point of contact for artists who have any questions about the application, and is a practicing artist herself and has lots of experience working with the arts throughout Alaska. So we're going to go ahead and jump over to the presentation in just a moment, but I want to let folks know that as questions come up, we will have time at the end of the presentation to have a broader conversation and to answer some questions that you have, but we ask that as they come up, you either put them in the chat or hold on to them until the very end. Again, at the very end, we will bounce our Q&A over back to Chica and Cheyenne to facilitate that process with us. We know some questions might come up during the middle or at the end, so we ask to hold all of those and just to track them in the chat box. We also ask for everyone to keep their microphones muted unless you are going to be asking a question at the end. And you are welcome to keep your camera on or off per your comfort level. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we will move right into the presentation. And Tristan will set us up with our agenda.
We already went over the welcome and introduction from the Alaska Native Heritage Center as well as us. We're going to briefly go over the Individual Artist Award program, the award types that are available, the eligibility and review criteria, briefly go over that. Also go over the panel process and what that looks like, and a very brief application overview. And it's very brief because we, again, have that full workshop, and that's going to be on the 28th from 5:30 to 8, which will provide more information. And then at the very end, a FAQ and then a Q&A that will be facilitated by the Alaska Native Heritage Center. And Zina?
So as we kind of dive into this conversation, we want to talk a little bit about why we're partnering with the Alaska Native Heritage Center this year and hopefully in years to come. Every year we do kind of a review of the program and look at the places in which we can do better as stewards of the arts and stewards of Alaska artists. And we recognize that there are areas within our state that are underrepresented in terms of applications. And so this year we've identified several different groups and disciplines and regions that have historically been underrepresented in our applications, and then that leads to an underrepresentation in our awards. So this year we've highlighted a few areas and are providing some outreach to communities like Alaska Native and Indigenous artists, Latinx artists, Black artists, performing artists. Those are some disciplines that are underrepresented. And we're doing some work in with Bethel Council on the Arts and with Kowirik and Kanturvik. So we know we're not hitting all of the groups or all of the areas or disciplines that have been underrepresented, but this is our first year, and we hope to grow and reach more communities moving forward. And, our goal really is not on our end to have, numbers or data, but it's really to reflect that we have been, as a organization, we have been underserving these groups, and we haven't been accessible enough. We haven't been providing information in an attainable way, and we want to do better. And the long-term goal of that is that the awards better reflect the diversity of Alaskans and art making in the state. And so we, wanted to have kind of bounce back to Chica and Cheyenne to start us off on a conversation about some of the challenges, strengths, or needs that they've experienced with programs like this or grant awards like this to Indigenous or Native Alaska Native artists.
Thank you, Enzina. We're really happy that we're able to work with you today on talking about these things. I'll let Chica talk a little bit more about some of these things, but we recently noticed that unfortunately, due to the pandemic this last year, we had a significant amount of loss for all of the artists when it came to one of the biggest events that I'm sure you all probably missed was the Alaska Federation of Natives Convention. That's like the Super Bowl of selling for artists. On top of that, all the holiday bazaars were basically canceled. And as artists, we were very concerned about the community. And we thought, what can we do to make sure that we could, celebrate our artists, help them in a way. And so Chica and Presley West, who is also part of our staff, say hello, Presley. We came up with the 12 Days of Christmas, which was basically to highlight people who had art that was in stock already. And so some of the things that I know that were possible challenges during that time are some of the artists don't really know about online sales platforms, and also about bios and doing your own picture. And like Chica talk a little bit more about some of these things, but these are some of the things that we were trying to overcome, but also trying to help educate our artists.
Right. So among the things that we know for sure with our incredible diverse group of artists is we have many strengths, and nobody can do the art that we do. I mean, it is highly sought after, and we are very, very proud to represent all of it. But among the challenges and needs in that category, just for the way Alaska is inherently, the challenges are almost compounded. And among the things is we know that gaining your materials, trading, all the different events where we typically get together, and artists actually barter at those events and they're able to get their materials. All of those have been really taken out at the knees this year. And so among, again, like I'm saying, compounding. So among the things is when someone can't get out of the village as well, maybe their internet or cell phone connections are not that great. And that in itself also demonstrates among the biggest needs right now when it comes to a program like this, an awards program like this. How many can't even literally attend a Zoom call because they don't have the technology to do it, or they're not signed up for the services for it? So among the things that we want to make our artists aware of is with a program like this is something that as you proceed in your business of being an artist, actually taking the time to apply for an awards program like this can actually help you overcome some of those barriers. So when you need to buy the materials, you know, for those projects you're planning, you know, this year, for when you want to be ready for the next event that actually is finally open. If you need to get a cell plan, if you need to implement reliable internet in your home, that's what taking the time to apply to a process like this can actually help you do. So in the end, you're not just taking time away from your focus on arts. If you take the time to apply for this and you get the awards, that is what the funds can help you do. It will mainly help you catapult your way and make an easier, smooth road to proceed.
Does anybody have any questions? We want to just remind everybody, if they have any questions, please put them in the chat or just unmute yourself, put your hand up, let us know if you have any questions that you want to ask about these individual artist awards. Don't be shy. Somebody was, I'm sorry.
Chica, I was just saying thank you for your really thoughtful perspectives on this. And, you know, I want to ping Tristan about this as well. You know, from a foundation's perspective, you know, one of the challenges that we've had is being more accessible and being making the program more flexible. You know, we know that having it be an online application is a barrier for folks who might not have internet access or access to a photographer. And so we know that's a barrier, and we are working at ways to be able to modify some of that to be more flexible. Tristan, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share?
I know I was really big on inviting as many artists that I knew, but also just Alaska Native people that I knew, because I know that word travels best through word of mouth. So all this information, I'm hoping that this information does get shared out to those community members that don't have internet access or do need a few people to help out, whether that's taking photos or helping fill out the application, or even just writing down information and filling it out in an application format later. So we do provide all of that support as Rasmuson staff that are all helping with IAA, because we are not fully immersed in the panel process. We just facilitate the panel process. So by doing that, we are actually really able to help and sit down with different organizations and entities around across Alaska to try and provide that support to community members who don't have access. So definitely, if you have any sort of questions or any sort of concerns, we're constantly learning, constantly trying to make things more accessible, easier, and really try and showcase Alaskans' wonderful artists, especially not just the ones who have internet access and have a website, because we know that artists come in all shapes and sizes and all different practices, and it really just shows kind of the diversity that Alaska has and how rich we are in culture, and really want to play to Alaskans' strengths while providing that support.
Great. Thank you so much, Tristan. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about the panel process, but, you know, Tristan noted that we work with a panel of experts, that foundation staff, we don't make any determinations or decisions on the application. So we review each application to make sure it's eligible and to make sure it's complete, but we're not actually the ones making the decision. And so we work with about 14 different panelists from across the country that have specialization in the different disciplines and within the different communities. And we work hard, and we're consistently trying to do better about orienting panelists to what it's like being an artist in Alaska. across the state. So what those challenges are and how those are very different than artists who are working in the lower 48. And so we work really hard to communicate those challenges to the panelists and spend some time with them so that they're aware and they understand that, you know, an image that, you know, wasn't taken by a professional photographer is, you know, still of a high quality and has that that depth of craft than a photo that was taken professionally.
I see that June Pardue asked a question about having a possible printable step-by-step checkoff form so that
Yeah,
no part of
absolutely.
that is overlooked by the artist.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we do want to ask folks to keep those questions in the chat, and we will go through them all at the end.
Okay.
But I'll just quickly say, yes, we have a paper application and a kind of checkoff form within that, and we'll deeper dive into that once we get to the end of the presentation. But yes, that's a great question and suggestion. And we do have that paper application that provides that checklist. So just a quick snapshot of the 2020 applications. So these were the applications that were submitted. And we know that Indigenous artists and Alaskan artists, Alaska Native artists work across all of these disciplines and are not just limited to folk and traditional arts. And one of our challenges as a foundation with this program is that we have not up to this point collected demographic data on applicants. And we know to do better, we need to start doing that. And so that's a change that we're going to be making in the future. So it's hard for us to give a hard number on the data of Alaska Native or Indigenous artists that have applied. And what we can go by is individuals who've self-identified. And so what's interesting is that of all of these applications, there are 25 project awards that are awarded each year. And we'll get into that more specifically. And last year, of folks who self-identified, there were 7 out of the 25 that were from Alaska Native or Indigenous artists. If we look at the fellowships, these disciplines rotate each year, and Tristan will talk more about that in a moment. Out of all of these applications, only 10 fellowships are awarded. And last year, of applicants who identified as Indigenous or Alaska Native, half were from Alaska Native artists. So 5 of the 10 fellowships did represent Alaska Native artists. You know, we know that we can always do better and increase that representation and increase our connection to the Indigenous community and do better. So I just want to introduce the history of the foundation really briefly. And the foundation can really be traced, the beginnings of the foundation can be traced back to 1955 when Jenny Olson Rasmuson came to Yakutat, Alaska as a missionary. While there, she met her husband, E.A. Rasmussen. They had traveled separately, unknown to each other. And E.A. Came to Yakutat as a teacher. And they got married and started their family. That transitioned into a banking history. And their son, Elmer Rasmussen, was in charge of the Bank of Alaska. And when he died, he left his personal fortune to the family foundation, which is the Rasmuson Foundation. And that's what started the charitable giving of the foundation. And I will say that the foundation, the family, the Rasmussen family, has been dedicated to the arts since 1955. That has been an integral part of even their family values, as well as a statewide value. Tristan, do you have any thoughts to add to this?
Not at this time.
Okay. So as I mentioned, the arts have always been a consistent value for the foundation and for the Rasmuson family. And in 2004, the Rasmuson Foundation developed an arts and culture initiative. And as part of that initiative, they created the Individual Artist Award Program. And they realized that the best way to invest in arts and culture throughout the state is to put money directly in the hands of artists. The overall mission of the foundation is pretty broad. It's to make a better life for all Alaskans. And so the foundation invests in a lot of different categories across the state, from health and human services to arts and culture, to education, to homelessness. And so it's a really broad spectrum of focus areas, but arts and culture has definitely been a consistent area. And it's important to note that the Individual Artist Awards is the only program the foundation has where they are giving support and grants to individuals. All of the other programs are providing grants to organizations, so nonprofit organizations, local or tribal governments. And then I'll pass it to Tristan to talk a little bit about the purpose of the program.
Kind of jumping off of the providing that grant directly to artists, it's allowing for a dedicated amount of time, which is a year long, and resources for our serious artistic exploration and growth. So that's what we have in mind for the Individual Artist Awards, and really overall to strengthen Alaska's cultural resources. So since it was started in 2004, that Arts and Cultures Initiative has provided over 550 grants to artists and representing more than 50 communities throughout Alaska. So since its inception in 2004, it has reached over 50 communities. What we have said before is that there are communities that are underrepresented, and that's where our informational is kind of based in today. So the three awards are the Distinguished Artist Awards, the Project Awards, and the Fellowships. The two that we're really going to be talking about today are the Project Awards and the Fellowships, because the Distinguished Artist Award time has already passed, and Zena will speak a little bit to the Distinguished Artist Awards. So these are the three award types. Just a quick shout out to Lily Hope for creating these beautiful award necklaces. Has created them in the past. I believe these ones were from last year or the year before. So there are 10 unrestricted fellowship awards, 25 $7,500 short-term project awards, and then the Distinguished Artist Awards is a one-time grant for $40,000, and that's by nomination. So there are quite a few more grants, project awards, than there are fellowships. So that's something to keep in mind. And the project awards are for a short-term project. The fellowships are for a short-term project award as well, but that's a little bit more unrestricted. And the artist career stage are emerging, mid-career, and mature. And those can kind of be up to interpretation. So we'll kind of go over we'll go over that in a little bit. But for project awards, it's just for emerging through mature, and for fellowships, that unrestricted grant, that is just for mid-career and mature. And the application period has already started, so we are accepting applications, and we're accepting them through March 1st.
Thank you so much, Tristan. Yeah, a little bit about the Distinguished Artist Award. As Tristan mentioned, this is a nomination process, and it happens outside of the project award and fellowship. It is a single $40,000 annual award for a mature artist who has significant lifelong contributions to the state, reinvesting back into arts and culture in the state. And it's done by nomination. So anyone can submit a nomination, people can self-nominate. And then separately, we gather a panel of Alaska-based artists and experts and community representatives, and they make the decision based on those nominations. And that is a period that begins in November. It has closed for 2021, and we are in the middle of the panel process for that. But we really encourage you to keep this in mind, especially for next year, that if there is an artist who's been working at a mature stage who deserves this recognition, we really encourage you to submit a nomination for them. Last year, our distinguished artist was Wayne Price. So again, if you have more questions about how to nominate someone or what the qualities of that nomination would be, please email us and we'll include this at the end. But if you ever have any questions about this process, you can email us at arts, A-R-T-S, @rasmussen.org. So I'll just quickly go over some of the elements involved in the project award and the fellowship that Tristan just talked about. So the project award is the smaller of the two awards. It is a $7,500 award. It's available to all of the career stages. So whether an artist is emerging, mid-career, or mature, it's available in all of the 11 disciplines. And again, Tristan will speak to those disciplines shortly. We try to be as comprehensive of all art making and creative processes within those disciplines, but we know that there's a lot of overlap. Some artists might be working in multiple disciplines. And we ask artists to read the guidelines and the description of the disciplines, and then best select which one represents their work. If you noticed in one of the earlier slides, when we talked about the fellowships, Jennifer Younger received an award last year under visual arts and also could have applied under folk and traditional arts, but chose to apply under visual arts. And so and she may have done that because it was a fellowship year for visual arts. And the work kind of can overlap. And we see that with crafts and visual art. We sometimes see that with performance art and choreography. And so it really, there's a lot of flexibility. And we ask artists to really think about how those disciplines are defined. Pick which one best identifies your work. And if you have questions about where you fit, to please contact us and we'll help walk you through it. And the project award is for a short-term project. So a project that can be done within a year. That's the typical grant agreement. It's a year long. We have been, the last year, we have been a little bit more flexible about this timeline because of COVID. We were right in the middle of the panel process last year and had to shift and pivot and make some changes because that's right when the pandemic hit. And so we did allow some flexibility and we want to maintain that flexibility this year. But we do encourage artists to think about projects that can be achieved during the uncertainty of the year that we have ahead. We know that in-person activities may be limited. Some projects, for instance, like an example of a project that someone might propose is to travel to Seattle to study works in a museum that will then inform their practice. We know that with travel restrictions, that might not be a possibility, or folks sometimes propose to attend workshops or go to large gatherings. So we really ask folks to think about projects that could be achieved or adapted during this time. And then project awards require a project budget. And I think I saw someone post in the question box the challenge with putting a budget together. And we hear that, and that is a challenge. And Karen Lowell, who we introduced earlier, is fantastic and provides a lot of really great direct artist support. She could call, email, set up a Zoom call, and really walk folks through how to make that, how to set up a budget. And we know that the budgets are estimates. We know that they change and can change during the course of the project. So we just ask for an estimate. And real quick, I'll say one of the common questions we get is, can I propose for less than 7,500? Or what if my project exceeds 7,500? So the grant is a set grant amount at 7,500. It can't be lower than that. So we ask artists to really think about costs when they're proposing something. And often there are costs that you can put in your budget that you might not realize, like space use or electricity costs, or et cetera. So there's ways to work out that budget. And we ask that if you need support with that, to please let us know. And there are about approximately 25 grant project awards granted each year. And then fellowships are the higher of the two. And these are grants that are only available to mid-career or mature. So artists that are a little bit more advanced in their art making practice. And that looks different for every artist. And we acknowledge and honor that. Mid-career doesn't necessarily mean that you've gotten a lot of grants or have gotten a lot of shows. It may be that you've been working in your craft and in your skill for a long time and feel really established in your abilities there. So mid-career or mature. And there are 10 fellowships awarded each year. So this is even more competitive than the project awards. And the fellowships vary from year to year. So any artist can apply for a project award every year, but the fellowships will, there'll be 5 disciplines available one year, and then the next year will bounce over to 6. So it's about half of the disciplines. And this year in fellowships, choreography, crafts, folk and traditional arts, literary arts, script works, and performance-based arts are available to mid-career and mature artists. And just to give kind of a perspective, last year we had close to 300 applications. We're anticipating 300 to 500 this year. We're not really sure how to gauge what the pandemic, how the pandemic will impact this. We know and acknowledge that there is a huge amount of need. And as Chika mentioned, a lot of the opportunities that artists have had to sustain their practice have been paused. And so we recognize that there are not a lot of resources available. We will share some at the end of this presentation. So we know there's a lot of need, and for us, it's kind of hard to predict if that will mean that we get more applications this year or we get fewer or about the same. But we're anticipating about 300 to 500 this year as well. And if we do the math, you know, it's not great. It is a real competitive process, and a lot of really exceptional artists don't get awarded because there's only 25 project awards and only 10 fellowships. All right, Tristan, talk us through those disciplines.
So going off of what Zina said, for the fellowships only being within certain artistic disciplines each year, so it flops every year. So this year the fellowships are, or the fellowship year for choreography, crafts, performance arts, etc. If there is something that is or if there's a discipline that you think you fit into and it's not a fellowship year and you want to apply for a fellowship, we just ask, well, you won't be able to apply this year. You'll have to apply for next year. But that'll just give you more time to work out your fellowship and work out what that's going to look like. But all of the 11 disciplines are available for the project award and for emerging through mature in terms of career stage. So that's a really kind of able to distinct between the smaller grants being available and having a larger amount of grants, and then the fellowship having only 10 and then only being within this specific 5 disciplines this year. 5 disciplines. And so a lot of these will kind of overlap. So we talked about what that looks like, music composition and presentation interpretation, or even choreography. Those will kind of overlap. And so it just depends on what you feel most comfortable with, what you most identify with, and applying within that. And if you have any sort of questions about that or any concerns, definitely reach out to us to see if that's something that you want to explore, if there's another kind of discipline that you want to move forward with.
Thank you, Tristan. So we just wanted to highlight, this is a change that we introduced last year. So historically, the individual artist awards were only available to individual artists. So a member of a group or collaborative practice couldn't apply. And we recognized that this was not honoring the collaborative nature of the arts or honoring some really significant and important cultural and artistic practices, like in the previous slide, Mexican folkloric dance or Alaska Native dance group. And so last year we opened up the awards, both project awards and fellowships, available to groups or collaboratives. And so that's as simple as any 2 or more people working together on a project and applying for one application. And there's some specifics and some limitations within that in terms of who can apply in the future, should they get awarded. People have to decide if they want to apply as an individual or if they want to apply as a group. You can't do both. And then also if you want to apply as a project award or a fellowship, you can't do both. So one total application. And so some of this is artists checking in with themselves and checking in with their group. And again, we want to make sure we leave adequate amount of time for questions. So if you do have questions about the group process for applying, we can take those at the end, and we encourage an email or phone call to us as well. Right, Tristan, do you want to run us through the eligibility and criteria?
Yeah, we'll run up on this fast because we're running up on time. Okay, eligibility. Of course, you have to be an Alaska resident living in Alaska for at least 2 years, similar to the PFD. Need to remain a resident for the duration of the grant. This is an Alaskan grant. You do need to be an adult or 18 years or older and currently producing work. Individuals that aren't eligible are going to be individuals that are enrolled in any degree-seeking programs related to the arts, and or if your artwork that you have completed and are putting in as your work samples was completed during your time in the degree-seeking program. So if you just graduated college and you have a bunch of work from all of your classes, you won't be able to utilize that, even if you are no longer a student. And then work that can't be primarily of research, scholarly, or commercial nature. And Zena will kind of flesh that out a little bit. But for the criteria, the criteria that we have for artists is the same criteria that we give to the panel. That's exactly what they're judging your work on. So artistic quality given the experience. We're not going to judge a emerging artist compared to a mature artist. That just wouldn't be fair. But if someone self-identifies as a mature artist, but they only have 2 work samples and they don't have any other work and they consider themselves a mature artist, that might be a little bit of a question of whether or not that matches what they're saying they are. Creative accomplishments. Again, this doesn't have to be studio work. This doesn't have to be putting your work up or in a museum or anything like that. It could be working with the community. It could be community and involvement and what that looks like. Impact on the applicant's growth, how this grant will impact you, how it will help you grow as an artist. And then also the completeness of the application. So that's another point of view as well. So if you say you want to do all of these great things, but you don't have any work samples to back it up, it's very difficult for the judges to judge your criteria. And that's what we kind of going over the work samples portion. What we'll go over during the full workshop on the 28th is really what looks good, what doesn't, what kind of the panelists are looking for. And Zena, if you want to talk about the commercial aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tristan. And I think I'll talk a little briefly about the commercial aspect, and then I think we'll just turn it right over to questions. We realized we're getting close on our end time, and I tend to be a little chatty, so I think I I brought us over a little bit. We recognize that there is a commercial aspect to being an artist, meaning artists need to sell their crafts or sell their work to be able to sustain their practice. We don't see that as a commercial project or a commercial artist. So if an artist is making prints of a painting or selling sculptures or carvings, or a musician is cutting an album and selling the album, we don't see that as a commercial project. What we mean is, and an example that I give often is a graphic designer that works for a graphic design business, and they are making designs and logos and advertisements and using those for their work samples, and are then proposing a project to buy equipment for the business. It's not their individual practice. It's not going to improve. It may improve their skills, but not for their individual fine art endeavors. It will improve the businesses. So that's kind of where the commercial line crosses. It's not making a living or being able to sell your art. It's having it be more of a business venture than an individual artist venture. Okay, so I think we'll pause there. We do have some more information for you, but we will email that out to everyone who's registered. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we did see a lot of questions come up. So we're going to bounce it to Cheyenne and Chica to kind of take us through some of the questions that came up.
So I kind of had talked a little bit about June Pardue's question of having more of a checklist. Is there going to be something like that? Yes.
So there is a paper application, and you can apply with a paper application. You don't have to apply online if that's a barrier. The paper application deadline is a little bit sooner. It's February 15th. And we do that because the paper applications have to be input into the system by staff. And if there's anything missing, we want to make sure we have time to reach out to artists to get that info. And in the paper application and in the guidelines on our website, and you can access, and if you have issues accessing because of internet connectivity, just let us know. There is a checklist in those guidelines. So it has every element of the application that you can check off to make sure that you've completed it. So that does exist.
Thank you. Another question, what about artists that want to connect with their roots because they were removed because of the boarding school process? It feels like a challenge to be accepted when there's such a big disconnect.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, I think that is a fantastic concept for a project. And I think, you know, if that's rooted in artistic and cultural practice, that would absolutely be a eligible project.
Can an artist apply for multiple awards?
A great question. No. So an artist can only apply for a project award or fellowship, so one a year, and only as an individual or as a group.
Is this year for literary arts?
Yes, so this year is every year in the project awards, you can apply in all disciplines. So that $7,500 award is available every year in all disciplines. And then this year, it is a fellowship year for literary arts and script works. So an artist could apply for a project award, and if they were a mid-career or mature artist, they could apply for a fellowship for literary arts.
So I know that you were talking about you putting in the full budget for $7,500, and what does that constitute? And I saw that Zuli put in childcare. That's something you may not think of. So thank you, Zuli, for reminding us of that. Are applicants allowed? I guess you kind of already answered that. They ask for more than one award in the same year, such as project and fellowship award.
I just want to add that you can apply every year. If you haven't received an award, you can apply the next year and the year after. But you do have to wait 3 years in order to reapply if you do get it. So if you don't get it, you can apply each year, year after year. And there are people who apply year after year and don't get it. There are people who apply 1 year and they get it. So it really just depends on the strength of the application and what our panel looks like, and that changes each year. But those are the kind of the boundaries around reapplying and applying.
For the fellowship award, is there a budget required?
Great question. There is not. So the fellowship operates as more of an unrestricted award. You still in the application have to say what you're going to do, but it's really any project or endeavor that will give you time to reflect on your craft and as Chika mentioned earlier, kind of catapult you forward and more into developing your work. So there's no budget required for a fellowship.
And beyond this, is there going to be somewhere where you can work with the Rasmuson Foundation one-on-one on examples of how to work through this application?
Yeah, great question. So as Tristan mentioned, we have a statewide workshop on June 28th. And that is
or June?
January 28th.
Okay.
Did I say June?
You did. You were wishful thinking.
I'm wishful thinking. Yeah, thank you, Cheyenne. January 28th, we will have a full, the first half of it will be similar to what we presented today. So kind of basic information, a basic rundown, but then from 6:30 to 8, we will do a full hands-on workshop where we look at some of the questions in the application and talk through a brainstorming session and start to actually jot down ideas that you can use and take to build your narrative. We talk about how to create an artist resume or a history of your work. And we know that that kind of resume looks differently too. And, you know, a resume is simply writing down your kind of work history, I guess, as an artist. And noting some of those kind of marking points in your career. But we're doing a hands-on step-by-step about, you know, resumes, artist statements, how to take good photographs of your work if you don't have access to a photographer. So that's January 28th. And we also have a full artist toolkit on the website. So when you log on the website, and click the individual artist award, there'll be a button on the right-hand side that says Artist Toolkit, and it has a bunch of resources that also talk you through how to creating some of these materials. And then Karen Lowell, if Karen can turn her camera on, Karen is available to provide some extra one-on-one support. So you can get a hold of her at arts@Rasmussen, and she'll set up some time for a phone call, video call, or email. Karen, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I just want to encourage you guys. It seems like a really intimidating process at first. It's a lengthy and very robust application, but I've been awarded, but I applied 6 times before I received an award. And it's one of those things that as an artist, as a maker, it's a way of honoring the work that you're doing, and it's an ongoing process. You only get better at it. The more you apply to things and the more you work on your application, the stronger the application gets. And if you get to a point where you're completely freaked out and intimidated and don't know what to do next, give me a call, okay? I'll put my email, the arts.rasmussen email, and my phone number in the chat. So that's what I'm here for. It's complicated, and at the same time, I keep telling people what you want to do is you want to make as straight of a line from your work to the panel as possible. And it's just a matter of being honest and truthful about what you're doing. So
I have a couple other questions too. For project awards, can equipment be included in the project budget, such as a quality camera purchase used to provide photos to a gallery? If not, are there other grants provided for this type of request?
Absolutely. That is exactly what artists will ask for. And that could apply for a fellowship too. There's a lot of overlap. Your fellowship could be to update your studio or create a studio and buy all of the equipment that you need to buy. I also want to mention another opportunity through the Alaska State Council on the Arts. And those are new. They were just released last month, and they are the Adaptation and Innovation Grants. And those are available to individual artists as well as organizations. And those are really flexible. They're maybe even more flexible than these awards. And they are for an individual, a $2,000 grant to support you and be able to provide you that resource to maintain your artistic practice. And it's super flexible. So we encourage you, if you're curious about that, let us know, and we can connect you with the Arts Council and they can give you more information.
Do you have to be a full-time artist in order to apply?
No. And, we know most artists in Alaska are not full-time artists. They have a main job or several part-time jobs, and you do not need to be a full-time artist, but you do need to, even if you're emerging, have an established collection of work or have, a set craft that you've been working in.
Will you be doing breakout rooms during this next large training? I know that I had gone through the training last year with you, and I found it valuable when I did a one-on-one kind of exchange between another person on, being able to tell about your story. And you kind of realize, man, I really don't have my stuff together.
Our goal is to do breakout rooms.
Which can be difficult, yeah.
Yeah, I'm laughing because none of us are, that super tech savvy, but that's our goal. We're going to do a run through of those tomorrow. And our goal is to do a breakout session when we do that kind of workshopping of especially the narrative components, to do a breakout session. There'll be 2 or 3 people in a room together that can do that kind of one-on-one check-in about the different prompts.
Is there any advice you would give to people before they come to the workshop, like homework or prep work?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to bounce that to Tristan or Karen to take a stab at first.
I'm going to jump in. What I would do is I would go to the Rasmussen website, and on the sidebar on the page that's the fellowship and project awards, there's an application that you can download. It just says guidelines, application guidelines. I would download that and print it out, especially for the people that like to touch things, and read through it and put notes by the areas that scare you. And then the other piece of homework is already, you should just be writing your story. Write down what you do, why you love what you do, what you make things out of. Write down all of the things that you've already done. That's your resume. Your artist statement is about you, your work, and why you make it. And then start looking at all the images on your cell phone and on your Facebook page about the work that you've made, and start harvesting the images that are really clear and really beautiful that represent your work, because that's the kernel of the application.
Well, thank you. I don't see any other questions.
Okay. Chica, did you have any questions or anything we missed or that you would like for us to make sure we address?
Oh, well, I'm glad that, childcare was brought up, because when we were talking earlier about focus, being able to focus on your work, and we know what not having a babysitter or getting home, and, it's impossible to really focus and get a set aside time to do your work when you're also doing your home life. And so I'm just really glad that that was brought up. And again, just really stressing how there are certain things that you know, if you go for this awards process, you're not ignoring other parts of your life. You know, you can actually dial back on the extra hours you put in on your day gig or something. This is all a way to balance and implement your life as an artist. That's something I just wanted to drive home again.
I do see one more question. Somebody asked, can you use images taken by the State Museum? But I'm going to put that, can you use images in your application taken by others of your work?
Yeah, as long as you maintain the rights to those images and to that work, absolutely. You know, we have had artists apply images of their work, and it was a collaborative piece. You know, they worked on it with another artist, and then they did not give that artist credit or acknowledge that it was done in collaboration. So, you know, if you maintain the rights to that work and the images, yes, you can share those for sure.
Well, thank you, everyone. We're really super glad to be able to co-host this meeting with Rasmuson Foundation. And as always, thank you to the Rasmuson Foundation for always being a strong supporter in our community for all avenues of whether it be art, languages, traditions, or just help in the community. We very much appreciate you, and we are glad to be a partner with you here today.
Thank you so much, Cheyenne and Chica and Presley and Tatiana, everyone at the Heritage Center. And, you know, we are just so grateful and humbled by the work you do, and every artist on the call. You are the ones doing the work and making Alaska a vibrant and rich place. And we are just so grateful for the work that you do. I want to bounce it to some of the other co-hosts and hosts on the call to send us off. Chica, can we start with you?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone, you know, you probably know people who couldn't make it here tonight, and to remember about on Thursday, in 2 days, there's going to be another informational Zoom call. So keep that in mind also for yourself, and also if you want to share with others. And again, Koyana Dailuji, thank you for coming here tonight.
Kristen, any final words?
Other than Koyanakbuk, no, thank you guys for joining. It's really exciting to see so many faces and also familiar faces here today. Yeah, have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see some of you on the 28th. And you can sign up for that. I did get a direct message, but you can sign up for that on our website, rasmussen.org/IAA, and all that information will be there. And I also saw another question about the panelists, of whether or not we're able to be able to see who the panelists are. I don't believe you'll be able to see who the 2021 panelists are, but we do have a list of the past panelists on the website as well. So you can look at that and see where we kind of look for and who we look for. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.